You guys are watching Fight Feed. Today I'm going to be going through my pick tracker updates, including the new scores from this past weekend's card, UFC 314. Once again, this pick tracker that I have created is following a few select creators, looking to add some more creators into this, but as of right now, these creators are the most consistent. And after adding in all of the picks from this past weekend, I'll quickly just go through a summary of who had the best picks overall in terms of wins and losses, and then I'll also be giving you guys an update on which creator is in the lead across all of the fights that I've been tracking. And if you remember, I started tracking this, I think it was in like mid-March after the UFC 313 pay-per-view card. So we've got quite a few fights now under our belt, and these scores just keep adding up. So as I mentioned, getting into this past weekend's card and who had the best picks on UFC 314 overall, we've got MMA Joey, who actually won this weekend with 10-3, meaning he had 10 correct, 3 incorrect. We have Guru and Lucas Tracy are tied with 9 correct and 4 incorrect. And then we've got myself at last place again with 8 correct, 5 incorrect. Okay, before I go and dive into the UFC 314 card and kind of show where each of the creators got their picks correct and wrong, I'm also just going to do this quick summary of where we're at overall. And as of right now, we've got MMA Joey in the lead with 77.7% correct, which is, it equates to 28 correct and 8 incorrect. So 36 total fights is what we've been tracking so far, and this is just going to continue to grow. Then we've got MMA Guru with a flat 75% correct. Coming in third place, we got Lucas Tracy with 63.8%. And then finally in last place, myself, 58.3%. So to give you the perspective, we got MMA Joey 28-8, MMA Guru 27-9. Lucas Tracy, 23-13, and myself, 21-15. Now, jumping back into the UFC 314 card specifically, we'll go through and just kind of take a look at our different picks that we each had. So the first fight of the card, we had Haley Cowan versus Nora Cornole, and I was the only one to pick Haley Cowan. I thought that although she had a bit of a layoff, I thought that she'd be able to go out there with her grappling and, do something with her grappling. I was excited in the start of round one when I saw her, kind of manhandle Nora to the ground. Nora threw up that armbar submission. I got a bit scared. Ultimately, same thing kind of happened in round two, but Cornole was able to capitalize and get Haley Cowan's back, ultimately getting a rear naked choke, and that's all she wrote. So I started off this card 0-1, unfortunately. Next fight on the card, we had Marco Tulio versus Tracy Gore. And all of us except Lucas Tracy chose Tulio to win this fight. I will say, while watching the fight, I was obviously happy to see my pick, Tulio, just using Tracy Gore as a punching bag. But Trayshawn landed a couple shots there that stunned Tulio, and I was like, "Oh shit, is Mr. Tracy going to get this one right?" Fortunately for the three of us and not Lucas, it ended up going our way with Marco Tulio getting that W in round two. Definitely a bit of a closer, not really a closer fight, but Tracy Gore showed that he can still be dangerous in some of those exchanges, landing a couple hard shots on Tulio where it was questionable if could he land a kill shot that puts him out. But overall, Tulio looked fantastic on the feet in that fight. The next fight on the card, it was a similar case as the previous. Myself, Guru, and Tracy all had Sumaderji, and Joey had the Mitch Raposo. This fight was a pretty lackluster fight on this card, probably one of the most lackluster. Really, Sumaderji won the fight just solely based off of being more active on the feet. Raposo used rounds 2 and 3 to basically just go to the ground and not really do much. I was watching it and I was thinking, like, could this go Could this be that situation where, the grappler gets the nod? And although they didn't do much, but in this case, Sumudaerji got that split decision win. And that's all she wrote for that one. The next fight on the card, we all had Mikhail Oleksiejczuk, and so we all got a W. Mikhail Oleksiejczuk made Cedric really look as though he didn't belong in there with him. I think he's just levels ahead in the striking, and he definitely showed that. He had a non-controversial finish, in my opinion. I think Cedric took way too many shots, especially not doing anything on the ground, and he ultimately paid the price for it. So nothing really else to say there. The next fight on the card, and actually I think the next couple fights, we all had the same decision, and it was actually correct. So we all picked Erosa when he fought Darren Elkins, and obviously we know how that went. I think the most significant strike that was landed was Mike Beltran tackling Julian Erosa to the ground. But Erosa, Juicy J looked great, and Darren, the Damage Elkins, he lived up to his nickname. He took the damage. We'll see where he ends up, but I feel like he should retire. He's 40 years old. Took a lot of unnecessary damage in that fight. Julian Erosa, he's still there and probably ready to, pick off another prospect in his next fight. So we'll see what happens. The next fight on the card, Chase Hooper versus Jim Miller. We all picked Chase Hooper. I think this one was a bit of a clear decision, but Jim Miller did show moments in this fight where he's still that scrappy veteran that can get somebody out of there potentially. I was a little bit worried on the feet. Chase Hooper still shows this. He's definitely leveled up his striking, but he still shows a little bit of work is needed, especially when he's in the pocket. I feel like he kind of just throws 1 to 2 punch combos and doesn't really finish things off with like a hook or do something where he can use his footwork to get out or evade out of the pocket. And that's where I just felt like if Jim Miller was catching onto that, he would catch him. But Chase ended up kind of mixing in the grappling as that third punch, if you will, for those combinations, being able to get Jim Miller off his feet. Really great entries for takedowns, very hard to guess when he's moving in for the takedown. So ultimately, Chase Hooper was able to just kind of manhandle Jim Miller on the ground. Jim Miller looked like he might, die of a finish from a heart attack at points in this fight. He looked very exhausted, but he's got all my respect being 41 years old and still getting in that cage. So ultimately, this is a very fun fight from a grappling perspective because they were getting each other in a lot of different submissions and flowing, quite a bit and, getting some high level transitions. And Jim Miller seemed to be able to stop Chase from getting a lot of those finishes on the ground. But ultimately, Chase Hooper just looked levels ahead, cardio-wise, strength-wise, just I think all around, Chase Hooper just dominated this fight from start to finish. Next fight on the card. We've got Yan Xiaonan versus Verna Jandiroba, or Rob Schneider, as people like to say. So in this fight, I was the only one to pick Yan Xiaonan, and I think the reason I said before why I picked her, although she's shown somewhat of a weak takedown defense against Zhang Weili, I thought that she would be able to potentially hurt Jandiroba on the feet. Because if you guys actually go back and rewatch the Zhang Weili versus Yan Xiaonan fight, Yan Xiaonan dropped Weili several times in that fight. And so I thought, if she's able to land shots like that on Jandiroba, she could put her out. And I guess I was just kind of thinking like that could be the case. I also assumed that working with Team Alpha Male, she would continue to work on that takedown defense. I did know Jandiroba it was a risky pick going with Xiaonan, knowing Jandiroba is a very high-level grappler. I think Xiaonan looked good at first, but ultimately, Jandiroba was just able to muscle her out and take her to the ground. Not able to get off any submissions. I mean, she did get a couple of them off, but not really in like a deep. She wasn't really able to get any deep submissions on Yan Xiaonan. And Yan Xiaonan really was able to stay out of danger for the most part, kind of making this fight a bit lackluster as well. Like it was basically just Jandiroba throwing up submission after submission and Xiaonan finding a way to scramble out, or not even scramble out, but like just basically switch position on the ground, and Jandiroba throwing up another submission. Ultimately, Schneider gets the win. And that was my second L on the card. Like these guys, like Guru had a huge streak. I think he got every prelim right except for, the last two. So anyways, moving on to the next one. We got Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. It looks like Lucas Tracy and I both chose Dan Ige. MMA Joey and Guru chose Woodson. We know how this fight ended up going. A lot of people were saying it was, closer than expected. I feel as though Dan Ige was controlling the fight from start to finish. I don't think it should have been stopped, but I definitely think had it not been stopped, went to decision, I don't see any situation where Sean Woodson wins that fight. Next fight on the card. This one is my favorite one because this is the only one where I went with the clear underdog, and I got it right. I chose Dominic Reyes because I feel like he's on a bit of a resurgence. I do think that people very highly underrate his ability to knock out his opponents. People seem to have forgotten when he fought Yuri, he actually dropped and KO'd Yuri, and Yuri actually admitted to this, but was woken up when he, I think, fell to the ground and Dominic hit him on the ground. So I think people forget how powerful Dominic Reyes is. And I knew, kind of seeing the style that Krylov has, he blitzes in quickly, and that is a perfect setup for that pull left counter that Dominic Reyes is very, very good at throwing. And I didn't know for certain that that's what he would land to finish this fight, but I felt like he had a good chance of landing that and maybe putting the lights out on Krylov. And Krylov's also been out of the cage for too long. Like, I felt like that, some fighters, and it's very few fighters, are able to overcome that ring rust, as they call it. And so that's where I went with Reyes. Everybody else went with Krylov. Reyes really, he stole the show with that knockout, and it was a great way to kick off the main card. The next fight on the card, we all went with Yair Rodriguez. I think we all assumed, Pitbull coming in being 37, size disadvantage for him, and then also just Yair having very dynamic striking. I don't think any of us expected that Pitbull was going to go in there and beat Yair. It's interesting. My brother-in-law was saying like he thinks Pitbull was going to win. Like, he's like, he's won and stuff, and I was like, dude, I don't think he's going to win. Like, he's like, dude, he had such a long running reign in Bellator and beat a lot of killers. I'm like, yeah, but not one of those fighters was at the acumen of Yair Rodriguez. Maybe not even the acumen. That's not the right word. They were not the style, like that dynamic style that I feel like there's probably no other fighters in the world at featherweight that are fighting in MMA promotions that can mimic that style of Yair Rodriguez. And so I just felt like Yair was going to put it on him. He had all the advantages in this fight, the experienced veteran in the UFC, the size, the speed, every single thing, the age. So I just think everything was in his favor. Pitbull was landing some shots, and obviously I think when they were in those boxing exchanges, it was a little bit worrisome because I feel Yair's boxing is it's just not as crispy as it should be maybe. But actually it's funny because while throughout the fight, when they were in those boxing exchanges, I would get worried. Yair ends up dropping Pitbull in an exchange on the feet, boxing. It was like a 1-2 and dropped his ass. So Yair did great overall. But I don't know how much that says about... What I'll say is I don't think Yair, this does not warrant a title shot in my opinion. I think the next best fight for him is exactly what everyone else thinks. It's the low-hanging fruit, him versus Diego Lopez in Mexico, in Guadalajara, when they go back there in September. Next fight on the card. So this one is and actually guys, I had this order mixed up in here, so forgive me. I think they bumped, I don't know why Yair and, I don't know, guys. I think the order online was different, but whatever. We got Bryce Mitchell versus Gene Silva. This fight, MMA Joey, look at that. He's the only one to pick Gene Silva, and that was a really good pick for him because I think that, we were all going into this thinking Bryce Mitchell was going to have that strong grappling and also have that he had those beady eyes, man. He was going into this fight ready to fucking go. And ultimately, Mitchell looked great in round one, I think, from a striking perspective, but I don't think that his strikes were necessarily doing much to Gene Silva to really hurt him or cause damage necessarily. What I love to see from Mitchell, though, is he did not let Gene Silva get in his head whatsoever. Gene Silva was playing the games, right? Like laughing, pointing, telling him to take him down. And Bryce just kept stomping on his leg. Like he just did not give a fuck what Gene Silva was saying. I think what ends up happening, though, is Gene Silva is just, he is a different fucking breed in that octagon, especially just, not only is he a great striker and so explosive, like he can kind of lull a fighter in and then be explosive and, drop them, but he showed amazing takedown defense and then also a very, very high level submission game that I don't know that everyone was expecting. I think this just continues to make that fighting nerd stock rise even higher. But you also have Gene Silva showing very, very strong, just being very strong. Like he just looked strong as shit. Like I feel like Bryce Mitchell, I thought Bryce would be able to like overpower him in those grappling scenarios, but Gene Silva was really the one like putting it on Bryce and making him fight his fight. And I think Gene Silva is just one of those guys where you get in a fight with him, if he gets you to fight his fight, you will lose. So that's exactly what happened. Ultimately, this was a very fun build-up, and it was fun to watch. I mean, it was a very nerve-wracking fight. Gene Silva ends up getting that win. Very great submission, and I think it was crazy. If you bet, he was like a plus 1,200 for win by submission. So if anyone was betting on that, you could have made a ton of fucking money from that one. The next fight on the card. So myself and Lucas Tracy both thought Chandler could get the W, and the MMA-guru and Joey both had the great pick of Patty. I thought Michael Chandler might get the W just because I couldn't get that image of Patty versus Jared Gordon out of my head in the sense of how many shots Jared Gordon was landing on Patty, especially that left hook. Patty seems to have, dude, the guy's got a great chin. Like he ate a couple straight flush shots from Chandler, but ultimately there was not a chance in this fight for Chandler. Like Chandler took him down in round one, but there was no damage really. The damage that was done was from Patty throwing the 12-6s backwards. Great to see. Then Patty lands that flying knee right into the cheek of Chandler, cutting him split wide open. I just think Patty really outclassed Chandler in this fight, and obviously MMA Joey wasn't picking Chandler, so very interesting matchup there. It was fun to watch, but Patty dismantled Chandler. It was not even close, and I have a lot of respect for Patty. I don't know if I'll be able to pick against him again, just depending on who he's fighting. My take, though, is that I think Patty should fight Arman Tsarukyan. I don't want to see Oliveira fight another young scrappy fucker. I want to see Oliveira's already done that with Tsarukyan. So like if Tsarukyan has to make another fight here to get that title shot, it's got to be against Patty in my opinion, because he was talking mess about Patty, saying like I'm not even paying attention. He's not even in the top 5. And I think that would be hilarious if the UFC then calls Arman as like, yo, you're going to be fighting Patty now. It's like, bro, you weren't paying attention. Now you are, because you're going to be fighting him. And I also think Patty has surprised me with how big he looks in the cage. I went to UFC 296 in person. Patty looks huge when he gets out there. And actually, Henry Cejudo just said this too. He looks like a welterweight. I would have totally agree with that assessment. Even if you compare Patty from the ceremonial weigh-ins to the next day when they fought, he puts on so much more like water weight. It's like a different person overnight. Definitely cool to see Patty do his thing. He beat the fuck out of Chandler. So Definitely going to be interesting to see where he goes next. I don't know what they do with Chandler next. Like Chandler's in a weird spot now. I mean, from a money perspective, a big fight they could do is him versus Pitbull, but I don't think he's even wanting to do that. And Pitbull's at 145, but I feel like Pitbull's in a spot too, being 37, 38. Like, what's he gonna do? Like, he just lost to Yair, so he's not ranked. I don't know where he goes. It'll be interesting, but I mean, you could do Aaron Pico versus Pitbull, but Chandler is in a weird spot, guys. Like, I don't know where he goes next. Maybe give Chase Hooper Chandler, even though Chase Hooper wants to fight younger guys. Anyways, next fight on the card. We got Lucas, Tracy, and MMA Joey picking Volk. Great pick for those guys. Guru and I picked Lopez. I want to say this again, because I think people think because you make a prediction that's the fighter you want to win. In this fight, I was kind of in a toss-up. I'm a huge Volk fan, huge Diego Lopez fan as well. I just picked Diego Lopez based off of the optics that, Volk's been KO'd in his last two. He's been out for a while. I just couldn't imagine that his chin recovered so much to where he could eat these flush shots from Diego, even get dropped by Diego and get back up and keep it pushing. But Volk absolutely proved why he is the absolute fucking man, and very, very deserving of the Great as his nickname. He really showed everybody he still got that motherfucker, and he looked amazing in this fight. I did really enjoy this fight. I thought that it deserved to be fight of the night. I wish that some of the other fighters on the card, though, those that are not filthy rich, were getting something in terms of a bonus. Even give Trayshawn Gore like a Medal of Honor, like for bravery and toughness, like because he just got the shit kicked out of him. But ultimately, main event was an absolute scrap, 5-round war. These guys look great fighting one another, and I think it's okay for Diego to lose this because Diego has not really lost much in the UFC, obviously. I think he's only lost twice now. Very high fight IQ, very, very big record, really. Like, he's got, I think he's 15 or 16 and 3 or something like that. He's got a lot of fights under his belt. It'll be interesting to see where Diego goes next. I think Diego versus Yair is the absolute matchup to make. And should Yair win that, Yair's in line for the next title shot then. I feel as though Yair versus Lopez is a great fight for that Guadalajara card. Whoever wins that, I think, gets the next title shot, in my opinion. Because I think Lerone Murphy, I don't know. I feel like he has not, he's won a lot, but he's just not had performances that are going to leave people feeling like he should be next. Mavzar is absolutely the next contender. So put Mavzar in there, get that fight out of the way, see what happens there. And then I think if you can get that Mavzar Volk fight, if you could get that in, prior to Guadalajara, it sets it up perfectly for Guadalajara to be the actual true number one contender fight at featherweight. And then in the meantime, what you could do is throw Lerone Murphy, even on that card, throw Lerone Murphy in there with a Gene Silva or, one of those other featherweights that's kind of on the rise. And should he win that, you could kind of pencil him in as the next shot after the winner of the Guadalajara card gets their shot at the title, right? So you could throw Gene Silva in there. And then there's Aaron Pico coming in, right? I think that's another thing. Gene Silva is just a great matchup for anybody. I think Gene Silva could be a great welcome to the UFC. Like, he's going to now, I think, be in the rankings. So he could welcome Pico to the UFC. It could be another either feather in his cap or challenge, right? And that also gives a high-level fight for Pico. Clearly, he has some name value coming over from Bellator. So I think you could put him and Gene Silva as a fight on that card, or even just a different card, and see where that goes. But ultimately, Volk versus Diego was a fantastic fight, and I'm so happy that the order is restored in the world. Volk is coming back. He's already talking about, this dude's talking about, I'll fight Mavzar in July. I think one of the media guys was like, you want to fight him next month? He's like, don't tempt me. I want to just see Volk go out there and do what he's best at. And I don't know. I think people want him to ride off into the sunset. I feel like he just broke the record of, that 35 plus, winning a championship at 35 years or older in a weight class under 170. He broke that record. No one's ever done it. Volk just did it. Now let's see him get some defenses at that age in this lower weight class. And I think he's got the perfect setup to do so given his skill set. And I feel like if his opponent doesn't have that nuclear bomb, he will win these fights. The guy is so high level, very good striker himself. He hurt Diego on the feet more than any other fighter has. Just a very well-rounded and high IQ fighter. So fun to watch. So there you guys have it. That is the tracker update, kind of going through it. Once again, just giving you guys that summary. We've got MMA Joey in the lead, 28-8. mma-guru in second place, 27-9. And Lucas Tracy, third place, 23-13. And then Fight Feed, that's me, 21-15. So I have got to get my fucking studying going. I'm going to need all my picks to be correct in this upcoming fight night card that's happening in Kansas City. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like this and subscribe. I will see you in the next one.